else. I mean, this is serious stuff, and it's just now that the medical science is kind of catching up and invading the NFL enough that we're getting their attention. But I think you and I both feel that there's still not enough attention being paid to it. Correct?
Yeah, exactly. So so what does a parent do? What does a school? What does a coach do? I think that one of the things that we're looking at is being proactive, and so there's something called the impact test. So I'm not promoting this. Well, actually, I am, but I'm not getting paid for promoting it. There's other ones, but let me just go to impacttest.com. You can see this is a test that actually looks at cognition. So getting a baseline. Schools really should start getting a baseline. Even Little League should get a baseline. And then you can do repeat tests. They're fast to do. A coach can do it. A trainer can do it. Anybody can really administer this evaluation and screening. But you pick up on that decline. And that's what we need to do, be able to identify is somebody having negative cognitive effects from these hits. And when is it time? And it's not just football. So, one of the things that the neuropsychologist was telling me about the other day, that he said, we're seeing a huge rise in this in cheerleading, believe it or not. They're doing these amazing skills, and a lot of times they're gymnasts that are no longer gymnasts. And so anybody who's getting kind of a blow to the head, hockey, I just did an interview on combat sports. So we really got to, take care of ourselves and be proactive.
Absolutely. And soccer, I mean, they do header drills, and I mean, it was in Europe before it was here. I think I read where there's been 40 guys in the CFL and NFL, and I actually have a list of every guy on my blog that has been diagnosed with ALS or CTE, and that stuff is fatal. And before it's fatal, it's you're unable to speak. You're speaking through they did an interview. HBO, I think, did an interview with Steve Smith, not the Steve Smith we all think of, but the veteran Steve Smith, the retiree Steve Smith, and he had a cheerleader wife, had the perfect life. He had a rapid decline because of CTE, and was now speaking through a computer. And his wife was feeding him, and it's like, man, you got all the glory of sports, and you got it, but it ain't worth this, as my mama would say.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. It gets back to not identification, prevention. No, I don't think anybody's saying stop, because when you start looking at the percentages, it's a low percentage, but it's severe when it's present.
Right. And I get the chance, and the difference is, and it's Sports and Courts is the name of my show, and I get to see it on the sports side, but I get to see it on the court side, and it affects families, and any brain injury. I had a case I defended, and the kid was spun around and hit his head hard enough on the rear view window that he had a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, and it's bad stuff and affects families, and it's truly something that, I mean, $7.5 million, some say that's a lot of money. It's really not when you're dealing with major brain surgeries and the amount of rehabilitation that these gentlemen and young ladies have to go through, and it's awful. From a NFL, NCAA, high school football standpoint, what can the parent or the coach do very simply, other than the testing and monitoring you've discussed?
Well, I think they're making some great progress on, just recently, the last couple of years, on how they hit and being aware of that. Huge penalties. I mean, I think when we at the NFL level, at least, you really start to hit them when you have to have a pretty hefty fine to be able to start to get their attention. And I think that's happening. And we hear more stories. I think education of what can happen, just like you're doing right now, and just like talking about Emmitt Smith and his story about how he was talking about being protected in fullbacks and other people. And I think it's knowing what can happen, and especially that you're a lawyer, liability. Right. When people start to coaches start to say, I have a lot of liability here. Or schools, I have a lot of liability. Well, liability is really to protect someone, and if they do follow the protocols, and I also would say for every state to get on board with all the protocols and get on board with the screening. I don't know exactly, but I think it's about 14 states have implemented some kind of testing like I was talking about in Colorado.
Doctor, I know you joined us from California. Can I keep you for a few more minutes? I've got to go to break, though.
You bet.
Brian's yelling. We're going to come back after break and finish off with you. If
okay.
You want. Thanks.
Sports and Courts Radio on 1010XL. Here's John Phillips.
I want to congratulate my friend Chris Crow, my new friend, for winning the wine opener. He identified the Cliff as Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird. It's a little piece where he's talking to his daughter Scout. Congrats, Chris. Call me at Brian gave you my number, but I don't mind giving it out over FCC airwaves, 904-614-9317. If you guys have any legal issues, help at knowthelawyer.com. We're back on with Dr. House. Dr. House, I wanted to get into, you never know how a head injury is going to occur. Right? With football, at least you kind of sign up for it a little bit and know it's a risk. But or I said head injury, but spinal injury, traumatic injury. If you don't mind, tell us about how you suffered your injury.
Yeah, and you know what? I was just thinking on the break. Let me just say one thing about CTE. I don't think we actually identified that as chronic traumatic encephalopathy. And we talked about the testing to pick up on the stuff early, but really just people should know that memory loss, aggression, confusion, even depression, and if anyone sees that in somebody, then that's a sure sign that something's going on. So I wanted to finish with that, please.
Red flag. Thank you.
Yeah. So I have a spinal cord injury when I had snow skiing, and I've been skiing. I started skiing when I was 5, racing when I was 6. I was extreme skiing up in the cliffs in Snowbird, Utah, and you just 20 years old, you're invincible. You never think anything is going to happen, and bam, it does, and it changes your life forever. It changes your family's life forever. And we're seeing that also in different sports, gymnastics, football. One of the persons that a friend of mine, and I'm sure very well known to Florida, is Mark Bonicani. And that guy was just doing what he'd done every day. And but I think there are some we're looking at how things are hit and how to have your head and to try to protect people. But the frustrating thing is when you look at some of these films, the people that have spinal cord injuries, they almost always seem very minimal. I mean, it's like, wow, that did that. I mean, it was just you're at the right angle or the wrong angle at the wrong time.
Man, well,
hard to predict.
It is hard to predict, and it's helping an NFL player get to the NFL is one thing, but helping a family recover after one of these losses is truly one of the things that I'm most proud of as a personal injury attorney. We get a bad rap sometimes, and there's a need for us in the system. But I digress. I checked you out on YouTube and saw a wonderful video of you skydiving and another video of you on a ski mobile. Man, that's fantastic, and it goes to show that one man's disability is another man's abilities. You just got to find the brighter side.
Yeah, I didn't slow down. So that was about after my spinal cord injury when I was 20. I think it was probably 8 months later that I was skydiving, and the guy I went with didn't have any. In that video, it tells about it to actually help people prevent having injuries. Because I talked to somebody who jumped out, and when they pull that chute, because I did it tandem, when they pull that chute, you're going from 120 miles an hour to 30 in a split second, and your legs kind of come up and slap you in the face. And they did to this guy and broke his nose. And then when they landed, you're hanging down lower than them. So if their legs hit, both those guys' femurs, or the big bones in your top of your legs, snapped. So I took some precautions to prevent that, and I talk about how to do that. But you got to get out there. I've skied. I think now that I'm in my early 40s, I'm starting to slow down a little bit because things hurt a little more.
Hey man, I'm there too. Dr. House, thank you so much for joining us. I'm gonna put a link up on all my stuff to get everybody to tune into your show, and you're an inspiration, and we truly appreciate you being on with us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.